Who's going to be first to the floor here?
First to the Floor podcast. Shout out to Australia.
Jordan Crawford, nice move with the dribble.
Here's driving on Stoudemire, the jumper, yes!
Oh, what a diving save by the
Yeah! Boston wins!
Tatum drives down and throws it down.
You guys are talking about a thing. Here's where it is, right here. That's a
Time for the tie.
the best team in the world right now. Marcus Smart at the buzzer.
Fireman in the deck.
Welcome in, First to the Floor podcast. Ben Vallis here, along with Jake Eisenberg. Jake, Brad Stevens, and Bill Chisolm. Billy C addressed the media today, attempting to justify the Jaylen Brown trade. How you doing, man? And what do you think of the press conference?
Firstly, if you haven't seen the new First to the Floor intro on the YouTube channel, get in there and have a look, because Ben
Really?
Vallis is a wizard. Are you okay now that Jaylen Brown is not on the team and that Jaylen Brown is in the intro?
I think he's goated, right? Like,
Yeah, it's fair.
10-year vet, 10-year like Celtic
Tired,
legend,
jersey.
finals MVP. Yeah, he's in there. Yeah, we might even throw Al Horford back in there at some point. But yeah,
Yeah,
the
I like
intro only took 2 years to make. So hopefully some roster stability over the next few years, Jake.
Not a perfectionist at all. I, like you, got up at 6 a.m. to watch the Brad Stevens, Bill Chisolm State of the Union. Hello, everybody watching early in the morning live. Shout out to a couple of our Euros and Tice and Steven. Congratulations to Steven on the Belgium victory over the United States, and condolences to everybody else, basically. But yeah, with promises to be watching the Spain-Portugal game, my wife got up early and was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "This is the Brad Stevens press conference." And in 5 minutes, she was interested, and she was like, "This is pretty boring." I'm like, "Yeah, I have to watch this though. Sorry."
I was on the edge of my seat, man. Don't know about
I
you.
disagreed, to be fair. My number one takeaway from the whole thing, it reminds me of the Jason Tatum contrast in how he said goodbye to Robert Williams versus Jaylen Brown, is Brad Stevens' demeanor in this press conference compared to his demeanor and emotions in the Marcus Smart trade press conference. He cried in that press conference, and Brad Stevens was maniacally smiling and laughing throughout this one. Now, that could be one of two things. One, it feeds into my theory that Brad has been open and maybe wanting to trade Jaylen for a while. Or two, that job makes you cold. And that Smart trade was the heart of Brad Stevens freezing, and he'll never be emotional like that again.
Like Billy C seemed nervous as well.
Oh yeah.
And I think
Big
Brad was maybe trying to be like, "It's all right, buddy, I got you." Like leading by example. Classic Brad, excellent leader. He's been doing it for years. But he did seem excited to explain to the masses the justification for the trade. I have in one 8-second video Brad Stevens explaining and justifying the trade in its entirety. This is the full explanation. This is what anyone with any doubt should need to hear.
But the path looked a little bit more challenging with 70% of our cap and such a high percent of our usage tied into two players.
That's all you should need to hear. That is the justification. Obviously, we're going to unravel more detail, but like CBA, again, public enemy number one. Therefore, what Brad Stevens just explained to you, it should essentially be a no-brainer. And Brad went on to say a lot of really, obviously, wonderful, beautiful things about Jaylen Brown, as he should, because he has been an incredible Celtic for 10 years. We'll do the Goodbye Jaylen Brown pod at some point, probably when all the trade chatter, the post-trade chatter calms down and when the offseason calms down. But the fan base out there, and we're going to get to this in a little bit, like just seem to be just not getting it, Jake. And that's starting to get to me. And with everything we know about the CBA, it really, that should have been like press conference over. Get up, walk away from the desks. Everyone go home, write your articles. End of story. It's been explained to us.
Yes, but to be fair, there was the follow-up as well. Why did you try and trade for Giannis? And why did you trade for Paul George, Celtics legend already, waiving his trade kicker taking us within striking distance of getting under the tax without having to make any significant moves. Sam Hauser, you survive once again. We can essentially waive Delano Banton and get under the tax, making us out of the repeat attacks going forward. But yeah, and he didn't say percentage of our players. He said like percentage of our usage, which I thought was an interesting word choice, because the usage equals the production. And it's like, we can't be assigning this much money to this much usage if we're getting this much production. And the answer that people do not want to hear is that it's not having two players tied up in 70% of your cap. It's having two players tied up in 70% of your cap that are not the caliber of a player like Jason Tatum or Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's the thing that he's not going to say. And people want him to say it. But Brad Stevens is not going to shit on Jaylen Brown in a way that I don't think he even would want to or believes he needs to.
No, he doesn't need to say. Yeah, he doesn't need to say negative value contract. It's just that's the subtext. And that's essentially what he spent 53 minutes, whatever it was, saying today in various other terms. Say that again.
I can't believe that it was that long. Ridiculous.
I laughed up every minute of it. I just love watching Brad talk.
It is good. And he did also say, though, like, because we've talked about this on the pod before and how it's like ridiculous that your own players that you draft, develop, and sign to these contracts, in theory, the Supermax is an incentive for these players to stay. That's why it was created. Apparently, its unintended consequence, or maybe its intended consequence, was that it actually has had the opposite effect. And like, you end up signing guys like Jaylen, who we love, to contracts that they cannot live up to Jaren, like Evan Mobley. He's not going to be able to live up to that contract because he won Defensive Player of the Year. And he made the comments like, there should be a rule where it's like, if it's your own player, they should count for 25% of the cap. Now, that's pretty extreme, but like, it should be 30. There should be a percentage of the money that counts on your cap, but doesn't count towards their actual salary. And if that was the case, maybe Jaylen Brown is not a casualty of this reality. But that's the reality, is that he is paid like a top 5, to quote Jaylen Brown, best two-way player in the league. And he does not perform, specifically in the playoffs and the regular season, like the best two-way player in the NBA. And if that's going to be the case, that's when you don't win a title.
Yeah. And look, I think partially what we want to do on this show is like try our best to convince maybe not everyone, but at least the fence sitters that it is objectively a good trade. And part of that is like, because all the pods we've done so far leading up to this trade and subsequently the comments, I mean, the engagement's great. It's great for the channel, Jake.
Shout out to everybody.
So many people, like, we've been called pathetic, losers, like dragging Jaylen's name through the dirt. Like, there's a lot of people who get, I guess, to some degree, rightfully so, quite annoyed, the Jaylen stands, of the sort of negative commentary around Jaylen Brown. And we cannot make this clearer that this is not an anti-Jaylen Brown take or comment or podcast or whatever. And I thought Brad did a really good job of like emphasizing this over and over again in the press conference last night. Was like, it's about the CBA. It's about the fact that we need, in his words, optionality and maneuverability within the confines and the constraints of the CBA. And unfortunately, Jaylen Brown, like you said, just does not play up to the level of that contract. And the CBA is such that we just cannot, like, in our right minds, give that level of money to multiple players, especially if one of them is, like, unfortunately, a tier or half a tier or whatever below, Jason Tatum in this case. So
yeah,
I thought he made that really clear. And meanwhile, it's great for Philly, who are in a different situation and kind of like need to acquire a player of Jaylen's caliber and have like less apron level constraints in the immediately short term. But it needs to be made really clear that like, love Jaylen Brown, huge fan. It's just not going to work going forward. Hence the trade had to be made. And if you didn't like my clip earlier, got another little clip. Brad explains part 2.
And the return for us was twofold, right? It was, number one, is there an opportunity to get somebody in the door or get tools that could allow you to get others in the door that could keep you at a very good level? And number two, would there be assets attached that would then be usable in future deals?
Seriously, there's like a cumulative 30 seconds from the whole thing of like Brad just like nailing the justification for it. And the picks are fucking good, Jake.
Yep. Amber in the chat, PG making literally the same money for the next 2 years. And he's a new listener or a viewer. Movie 5 short. He's very angry, or they are very angry. We're gonna make you feel okay about the season by the time we get to the season. I promise you. Stick with us. Please subscribe. We love having you. We're going to get there. We might have to start printing some shirts, Ben. I know it's been a while, but
We like Paul?
optionality,
Okay. Yeah.
optionality, and maybe Sheets FC. For those who are unfamiliar, that's short for Spreadsheets FC Football Club. That's what the Celtics apparently are becoming, because the picks are really good. And Brad said that as well. We ran the analysis. We believe in those picks. Basically, PG is making less money this season. We're making it easier to get into the tax, and the 1 year less on the contract is huge. And the Jaylen Brown extension conversation was about to happen, and that was either going to be now a 5-year supermax, or it was going to damage the relationship even more. So that is where the urgency came from to do this. Are you leading me to talk about the picks a little bit? Because I can do that.
I mean, I would love to just sit back and listen to you talk about the picks. Absolutely. We are, just for folks listening, we are going to, after the ad break in like 5 minutes or so, we're going to do the like countering every argument against the Jaylen Brown trade. So like this comment here again from Movie 5 short, why didn't they take the PG injury history seriously? We're going to get to that. We're going to get to all the angles as to why people are, vehemently against this trade and try and counter each of them. And I think we've got a good argument against each of them, Jake. But the picks, you and Spoonie talked about it on the last pod. Spoonie called the Clippers pick essentially like the most valuable pick on the market, at least that's not
owned. Yeah,
it's not owned by the team. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's a good point, because it's important to remember the new lottery rules, because the other team that comes to mind is a team like Milwaukee, where Portland owns their picks, or Houston owning a Brooklyn pick. Remember now, this new system, the bottom 3 teams, the worst 3 teams in the NBA, get 2 balls, and then the non-play-in teams above that get 3, and then the 9 and 10 seed have 2 balls, the same exact amount of chance as the worst 3 teams in the NBA. And this new version of the Clippers, that I know Joe Tiddy, Omar Bolsack, was high on the Clippers. They currently are projected to be like the 11th, 12th seed in the Western Conference. And so I know I'm talking a lot about balls, so apologies, stick with me here. So they qualify as the exact type of team, they profile as the exact type of team that is going to fall into this 3-ball category.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only can it be used in a trade, it's like, okay, who has picks that are going to be this valuable? The Celtics have one. And Brad's betting against Jaylen Brown. I hate to say it. He's betting against Jaylen Brown. The Philadelphia 76ers 2031 unprotected pick, talking about percentage of the cap. I am so excited for July 26th to see if the 76ers extend Jaylen Brown. They don't have to do it, obviously. But if they're going to do it, it's probably going to happen immediately. If they do sign it, then in 2031, they will have between 80 and 85% of their cap assigned to 35-year-old Jaylen Brown, Tyrese Maxey, and VJ Edgecombe. The NBA is getting really good. The Eastern Conference is getting really good.
Mm-hmm.
Brad's making a bet that, again, with these new lottery rules, he's not saying they're going to be complete booty butt. He's saying play-in, maybe just outside play-in, very likely to me.
Well,
So
yeah, and Yeah, absolutely. Like the 2031 pick in Philly is, I think, just as exciting to me. I know the more coveted one right now is the 2028, and that's the year that we've got the swap with San Antonio. So just to have a little bit more draft capital in that year, I think is interesting as well. I think Brad had a couple of comments on what he was calling premium assets.
But the draft assets in this whole deal, the way we looked at it was they're two potential premium assets.
Damn right. Just to punctuate that segment, Jake. I think again, Brad cumulatively took 40 seconds to explain the entire justification for the trade. I think another interesting takeaway from the press conference is that Billy C not only said like there was no financial mandate that was sort of influencing this move, but in fact, Brad and co actually brought the idea to Billy C. It was in fact the opposite in that it was our front office was basically said like we need to get ourselves out of this financial situation in terms of two players taking up such a huge percentage of the cap. Let's go to Billy C and make it work. And I think that counters. We're going to get to like countering all the arguments in a little bit, but I thought that was an interesting takeaway. They actually said that part out loud.
Yeah. And also the second round picks are, no one wants to hear this.
I want to hear it. Let's go.
The second round picks are good second round picks. Like, I'm not sure if it was the best rage bait I've ever heard, but Brad was like, I know no one wants to hear about second round picks, but they could turn into Jordan Walsh or Dylan Mitchell. And I was like, oh man, I can only imagine how mad that made a certain percentage of the population. But the 2028 second round pick, the most favorable among Golden State, Milwaukee, or Oklahoma City. OKC is going to be at the end of the draft. But if you remember, the second round flips the lottery order. So like if you're at the bottom of the lottery, then you end up picking at the top of the second round. Golden State in 2 years from now, with this weird roster they've got, probably going to be in that like high, somewhere in that lottery range.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And then same with the 2030 pick, Phoenix, Portland, Washington. All three of those guys have the potential to be like all over the lottery. So I've seen the most elite cope I've heard today is those second round picks are actually 1.5 round picks. Incredible.
That's
Incredible
awesome.
work.
Yeah,
Prize
I love
Picks.
that. There's another t-shirt for you. Yeah, we've got to get to Prize Picks, pay the bills. Jake, here's a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks.
All right, slow down, Ben. We do love Prize Picks, and I believe they love us, because what's not to love about Prize Picks and what's not to love about First to the Floor? It's a scorching sports summer, and you can make all your picks on Prize Picks. WNBA and baseball are heating up, and every game in soccer's biggest tournament is getting more important. I am just a complete Norway whore at this point. I love Holland.
Norway?
Sorry.
Continue.
Wow. My brain really took a moment to pick that one up. One of my best mates from high school, Ed Tumart, Norwegian, going to be in Norway for the Norway England game. It's not coming home. The Norwegians in Holland are going to be sending those boys packing. But yeah, man, it's all about Prize Picks. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, America's #1 sports pick app.
Shout out the CLNS Media Network. We can't do a demo of Prize Picks at the moment because we're currently outside of the US, but I'll be taking more on enraged Celtics fans on the timeline. And shout out CLNS. I was enjoying the post presser reaction Garden report. John Zanis just like feel like I'm taking crazy pills, just like trying to lead everyone to the promised land of understanding, and just like nobody getting it, which brings us back to where we're at the moment. We're going to get to all the counterpoints soon.
John Zanis has never been more aligned with the First to the Floor people and the First to the Floor Discord in the history of John Zanis. Howard, I'm drinking whiskey with 3 ice cubes, and it's wonderful. But yeah, it's happening. There is a slow, eye-opening movement and contingent happening. The groundswell first to floor is definitely at ground zero of the groundswell. There are dozens of us on Twitter as well. But yeah, they're slowly coming around. Sorry, well, did you ask me a question?
I don't think so. I think we were just riffing. I got some questions for you, but I
No,
was
it's just my ADHD medication is wearing off and the whiskey's
the
kicking
whiskey.
in right at the
I
right
could have to
time.
crack a boozy beverage as well, I think.
Yeah. But one of the questions, I think it was Dan Shaughnessy, I forget how to pronounce his name correctly. He was like, if you're a 10-year-old kid and you see this trade, how are you supposed to think that the team is better? And I'm like, that's got to be the dumbest question I've ever heard. Like, Brad Stevens did such a good job to not be like, yeah, 10-year-olds aren't running the fucking Boston Celtics, dude. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
That's got to be one of the worst things I've ever heard. Yeah, 10-year-olds are going to be sad that one of their favorite players are gone. They don't understand anything about the salary cap, anything about the market. Do we need to talk about how the salary cap was projected to go up by 10% every year when the Supermax contracts were signed? And in fact, it's been significantly under, leading to like the current tax line being $40 million lower than was originally projected. We might not be having this discussion if it had gone up by what it was originally discussed as. And when we sat on this podcast and we're like, I'm not worried about losing Jaylen Brown. It's going to go up by this much, and we're going to have this much space below the tax. And we're wrong. We had no space below the tax, and Jaylen Brown is gone. So, yeah, that's another question and another moment from today's press conference that made me be like, what are we doing here?
Well, there was another one where someone was sort of asking about the financial mandates / motivations and sort of went with like, oh, you got rid of Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, and like now you're getting rid of Jaylen Brown. So how can you tell us like this isn't the sort of gradual new ownership, like just cost shedding? And he was like, and I really respected Bill Chisolm for this. He was like, first of all, I reject the premise entirely. And then sort of went on to talk about the actual logistics and the actual factors leading into this maneuverability. I mean, put simply, there's a repeated tax we need to avoid. There's a certain period of time we need to avoid it before we can go back into it without really harsh tax penalties. It's not fucking complicated. And it felt like that was the gist of the press conference today. Is just like Brad Stevens, Billy C being like incredibly polite, trying to lead people to like just baseline comprehension of why the fuck they're doing this. It's really not complicated. I don't know what else to say. Well, yeah. What
apologies for the misinformation, and thank you to Steven for taking a break from his treadmill run. That is in 3 years it'll be 40 million less, but the same framework applies to why this is happening. Yeah, Bill. I really appreciate Billy C being up there because the way people are trying to rationalize it is by coming up with this private equity conspiracy, and he is a fan. And he admitted up there being like, man, it was hard for me to hear what Brad and the front office were telling me. And honestly, that was one of my big takeaways is like, Bill's a casual. Like, I think I would be pretty surprised if he was aware of the Jaylen Brown analytic situation and the lack of impact that a lot of numbers said about him. So I think that for Brad to go into him and be like, this is the case for why we think we need to lose Jaylen Brown, he admitted it was really difficult for him, and eventually he got there. And the fact that I think that he had that initial response to be like, I don't like this idea, and then still let Brad Stevens, Zarin, and the fellas cook is the most important thing. Because the worst thing you can have in professional sports is an owner getting in the way of your front office. Sometimes it can be a good thing if you got idiots running your front office, but we do not. Like if you were someone a month ago that believed that Brad Stevens was a basketball savant, I don't think you should be changing that opinion based on this one decision. He could be wrong. I guarantee you he's not wrong to the degree of a franchise killing, era defining mistake. Look at what the Cater contract looks like, the Mitchell Robinson signing, the Ron Harper Jr. extension. Every other move has been very obviously a home run, a slam dunk. And Chisolm he isn't losing faith. This is like my mantra. It was easy to have faith in Brad Stevens until now. Don't lose faith. Don't lose faith now.
Can you imagine if you're like sitting in the office and Brad Stevens comes to you and it's like, dude, got an idea for a trade. Hear me out. It's going to be crazy. You'd be like, okay, Brad Stevens, whatever you say. Like immediately you would just be completely bought into it. Like what a luxury from Billy C. And like, yeah, maybe he is a casual, but if you have that kind of proximity to Brad Stevens on a regular basis, how quickly is your rise up to like savant level status just from being near the guy at all times? But maybe that's a good time to segue to
I don't know. I got pretty close in Boston, and I think I got further away probably, but that's okay.
I don't know. It's probably a good segue to get to like we need to just like put out there, and we'll probably clip this for socials or whatever. But like the counter argument to all the sort of the commonplace points and arguments against the trade. And I'll preface this by saying Brad Stevens is known for being a good decision maker and a logical and sound maneuverer and decision maker in his role as POBO, president of basketball operations. So like why he would suddenly go and make a boneheaded move that makes no sense unless he like fell on his head somewhere while walking, that doesn't add up. So I guess the first question that went out there immediately after the trade was reported, Jake, was you didn't get enough. Like you made this trade, and this was me the night before the trade. Like there's no way they make this trade because there's just no way that they're getting like a Kawhi level package for Jaylen Brown. It's Jaylen fucking Brown. Of course they're going to get more. As soon as the trade happened, it took me about 5 minutes to be like, well, that was clearly the market for Jaylen Brown. So that's what they were getting. That 5 minutes is all it took. So I guess to kick us off there with that point, Jake, like what is the argument against the you didn't get enough squadron?
You can't force the market to pay more. The market is the market. Brad Stevens canvassed the entire NBA. Everyone had the chance to trade for Jaylen Brown. Brad didn't look at 7 offers and decide to take the worst one. I understand that we had like a month ago, we would have thought that Jaylen Brown would have gotten more. I thought Jaylen Brown would have gotten more. I thought there would be at least 2 teams that were behind the 8 ball as far as the analytics go. Clearly the league has gotten smarter. It kind of comes back to the draft. Like Bill Simmons talked about on his pod, it was a boring draft because everyone just took like the right player. And in this current CBA, the most toxic thing you can have right now is a supermax contract for a guy that is like a top 15 player, even top 10 player. Like you have to be so fucking good to return value on that level of a contract. And Jaylen Brown, unfortunately, is not good enough to return value. And what drove me nuts, Chris Mannix on the Rosillo pod being like, I had a team that tell me that they were stunned that they accepted that offer because they had made an offer and it was going to get better. But it's like, yeah, well, how fucking bad was your offer to begin with, brother? And beefing up from what? Beefing up from butthole. Otherwise, Brad Stevens would have taken that deal over the other deal. Because Brad was like, yeah, I didn't want to trade him to Philly, but that was the best deal. And so it's like, those were the deals. And again, everyone's saying, I don't know if you're going to ask me a different question. As soon as you don't give him that extension on July 26th, it's only going to get worse.
Yes, that's the next question. Okay, so this is from the comments here, Movie 5 Short.
On cue. Our guy, we're going to get you, Movie 5 Short. We're going to get you.
By the end of this podcast, so if you can't force the market, is the question, then you just wait. Why now? Is the world ending? Why do the trade now, Jake, and not later?
Okay. Why the best time to have done the trade would have been last off season, and you could have gotten even worse, but at least you could have gotten a better draft pick. Alas. Well, that's maybe not true. But remember, he was coming off meniscus surgery. But why not wait? One, the extension talks I just covered. You lose your leverage immediately after you don't give Jaylen Brown the extension. Yep. Guys, Jaylen Brown just came off a season where he was second team All-NBA, 6th in MVP voting. He's 29 years old. His age has a 2 in it. This is the peak. His age will have a 3 to begin it in a month. The value will go down. You wait till next offseason. Maybe he has a better season. Maybe the Celtics go to the finals, conference finals. Now he has 2 seasons left on his contract. And the question arises, will Jaylen Brown sign an extension with this team? Do we want to sign Jaylen Brown to a Supermax extension? Jaylen Brown now starts to gain more leverage the closer that he gets to free agency by dictating where he can and will not go, in the same way that Giannis decided there was going to be two teams where he would go in Boston and Miami. We're very willing to admit that a better trade may have eventuated, but it's ridiculous to ignore the possibility that it could have gotten worse.
Mhm.
It could have 100% gotten worse. And Brad Stevens was like, I'm not taking that risk, because that's how this era gets fucking killed, is the relationships between Jaylen and the team are unrepairable. He tanks the team and you get an even worse offer and you lose him for nothing. That's how you get fucked.
And the contract extension deadline for Jaylen is what, like end of July-ish? Is that correct?
Yeah, July 26th.
Yeah. So if that deadline comes and goes and the media report comes out, say we didn't trade him, the media report comes out, Jaylen Brown incredibly disgruntled, not having, come to an agreement with the Celtics on a contract extension. Do you think that betters or worsens his trade value? Obviously it worsens it, because any team acquiring him is then going to be, I hate to use the word, but burdened with the need to extend him to keep him happy, or just be put in the same position as the Celtics were a moment ago, which is having to move a degrading asset. So essentially that's the answer to why I don't wait any longer, because the more you wait, there's more hoops that we jump through in terms of the juncture we're at in Jaylen's contract, and therefore the value just diminishes over time. That's why I don't wait.
That's how it works. 11-1 Freeman in the chat. Jason Vanilla Tatum and his analytics game sucks, and we're losing the first, second round. Well, guess what fucking happened the last two seasons? We lost in the first, second round. This era was done. Brad Stevens decided that this era was over. We lost in the first round to the Philadelphia 76ers after blowing the first ever 3-1 series lead in franchise history to a fucking mediocre team. A mediocre team.
Facts.
The era was over. Brad Stevens decided the era was over. Optionality. Sheets FC.
Bro had 3 years left. Another comment in the chat. It's like, yeah, but what are you going to do? Just be like, sorry, we're not extending you. Just write out the 3 years and pretend everything's cool. Like you can't do that.
The perfect time to trade him. That's the perfect. If you're a team acquiring this type of player, it's perfect. Look what happened to Giannis. If they traded him 3 seasons ago, they would have gotten everything and more. And the Bucks would be in a great position. They waited, and they got a package fit for a second tier star. It's just what was going to happen.
So you mentioned Giannis. That sort of segues to the next argument against the trade. Well, if you were going to do this and get, a subpar return, which includes Paul George and I think some blue chip like draft capital picks, why not just go all in for Giannis?
I think this is the only fair criticism of the trade. And my defense of it is that we don't actually know if the Bucks would have taken the trade. You just don't know. There was semi reports that if you include Baylor and you include Ugo and you include 2 more first round picks, so you're sending out 3 picks to swap Ugo and Baylor for Giannis, that they were maybe going to do it, but we don't know if we were being used as leverage. Going back to the lottery reform stuff, the Heat are far more likely in those far out years after Giannis ages out to be right in the lottery reform zone. Whereas the Celtics are, again, a regular season wins machine. When's the last time they were? The last time they were in the play-in was 2021. And Jason Tatum had 50 on Bradley Beal's head to put them into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't fall out. Look, I'll go all the way back to Brad Stevens' first year as coach. It's just constant exceeding of expectations. Last season, constant exceeding of expectations. It'd be a very easy analysis to be like, okay, we got 3 picks from the from the Heat, or 3 picks from the Celtics. Who's more likely to be picking in the lottery? Very obviously the Heat. And maybe they canvassed the league for Jaylen Brown. And they were like, actually, Portland doesn't want Jaylen Brown. I was wrong about that, hand up. I thought that was going to be the trade all along, and didn't happen. So, but that's the one piece. Was there a price that was like somewhat reasonable, aggressive, but somewhat reasonable, that you could have gotten Giannis? And I think that is a better path than the path we're on right now. But there is a line where I'm like, because you have to win them. You have to win in like 2 years, basically.
Yeah,
and maybe your
exactly.
argument is like the chance of us winning in those 2 years versus like the next 5 now were higher. But Brad was basically like, the price is too high. I'm not going to build out a good enough team if I do this.
Well, yeah, and it's a good point. I think the Bucks did canvass the league on Jaylen's value and basically came up stumps, got the same outcome or the same answer that we inevitably got, and just decided that the Miami package was ultimately of greater value than what they'd get in the Celtics package, and plus whatever they get from flipping Jaylen Brown. I think that now, in hindsight, knowing what we got for Jaylen Brown, it actually makes a lot more sense that the Bucks ended up going with the Miami package. I also think that, and I've said this before, but like the Bucks obviously were asking for a lot, and Brad and Zarin and whoever were obviously like, we'll be a really good competitive team with still some of that optionality, to use that word again, if we have Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and XYZ, and the Bucks just wanted too much of the XYZ, where sort of the remaining parts were not going to be adequate from Brad Stevens' perspective as far as still contending for a championship, and certainly not having any of that optionality. So like ultimately the outcome that the Celtics were presented with, even if they did have a choice to pull the trigger, was not going to be good enough. There was not going to be enough depth and optionality and whatever else around Giannis and Tatum going forward. Maybe you had one really good year right out of the gates while Giannis is still a little bit young, healthy. Maybe you have 2 really good years potentially, but ultimately they decided, and I'm still in the trust Brad camp, that they decided that whatever the accompanying pieces were around that Tatum Giannis call, we're just not going to get it done. Or not have a good enough chance of getting it done.
Yep. He had to make a call. He was because we started the pod where it's like he's willing to pay 70% of the cap to guys if they're as good as Tatum and Giannis, but there's a limit to it. It can't be Giannis, Tatum, Jake, and Ben, and Taylor 7-2-6-4. Like there's a limit to the type of team. Like look at the teams that are winning the titles now. It's like deep, talented teams. Like the second, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth guys on these rosters are really, really good. Taylor 7624 in the chat. Why would the window have been 2 years? Well, the next 2 years are Giannis's age 32 and age 33 season. Like statistically, like you have to be an outlier to remain a top 5 player into your 30s, and that's becoming more likely. But Giannis's lack of shooting and reliance on physicality, I do think Giannis is going to age fine, but like there's risk in it. I think both paths have validity. I think the path that we've gone down is a higher floor and a lower ceiling path than going all in on Giannis. But that's the only other way that I see this. And maybe if Brad had played the Jaylen trade thing a little bit differently, maybe they could have gotten a little bit more, but that's something we don't know. Like if during that Giannis thing, is he talking to other teams at the same time? Maybe he was. We don't know necessarily. But yeah.
But I think we've got enough there to hopefully help people understand like why not Giannis in this instance, like why it didn't go down that way and why it went down this way instead. And again, a guy, movie 5 short, just like asking all the right questions at the right time, says in the comments, they think PG is an Iron Man, but this season he'll play 30 games. I think, at least for me, and like a healthy PG will be like a good complementary piece on this Celtics team based around Jason Tatum. And there was some hints towards this yesterday, I should say, in the press conference. But like they might switch up what the offense looks like to some degree. So Paul George, when he's healthy, I think will be an interesting and very complimentary piece. But for me, it's like it's not about Paul George, the person or the player. It's really about Paul George, the contract. And that is that, yes, he earns essentially the same amount of money annually as Jaylen Brown, but his contract ends 1 year sooner, and his contract being on an expiring deal coincides with the time where we'll be looking to spend more money and to actually fully invest in a fully fledged roster around Jason Tatum, because we can do so without incurring those absolutely heinous and brutal repeated tax penalties that we would incur if we did so today. Is that fair to say, Jake?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, I'm pretty distracted by the chat here.
Same.
But yeah, I think Paul George is look, he's not the perfect player. The health risk is real. It is the first season coming in healthy, but you're right. It's all about the contract. It's all about the 1 year less on the deal. As soon as this season ends, he's an expiring contract. And there's multiple avenues here. It could be the trade for Jokic thing, very unlikely. Considering Jokic says, I want to be in Denver the rest of my life, I think today. The first trade that I've come up with so far is Paul George for Franz Wagner and Anthony Black after the Magic miss the playoffs next season. I love Franz. He's essentially Orlando Jason Tatum when you look at the advanced analytics. That would be an awesome outcome. It could be instead of Paul George picking up his option, it's an extension of 2 years 75 or 3 years 85. Again, pulling numbers out of my butt. Bro can't shoot at all. I'd be hesitant to direct you in the space of Jaylen Brown's shooting numbers.
True shooting.
If you start looking at scoring efficiency from Franz and Jaylen Brown. But younger, again, has his own little injury risk. And again, the particulars are kind of irrelevant. When it comes to Brad and the big moves, we kind of never see them coming. I promise you right now, Brad Stevens is not trading for Paolo Banchero. We're Sheets FC. Like if Paolo and Franz are like the budget version of Jaylen and Jason, Franz is the Jason as far as the analytics go. Mm-hmm. And Paolo has even more horrendous analytics than Jaylen Brown. But yeah, there's again, print the t-shirts, optionality, trade Paul George for a Supermax player, trade Paul George for 2 smaller contracts and 3 first-round picks for against a team that's now looking to retool and rebuild to a degree. Extend Paul George and then bring his contract down, play another season out, and then trade him elsewhere and stack his contract with a Derek White to go get a Supermax guy. There is optionality. And I mentioned on the last pod, Brad Stevens is a fucking wizard at all the optionality shit. And Jaylen Brown made using that superpower difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah. Brad Stevens is like a free range chicken now. He's free to roam. And like, we are going to have so many potential trade podcasts. Like, I love the
how many Brad Stevens per hectare are we working with right now?
Just one in a paddock, just that's like completely naked. Steven. Just the breeze in all the right places. Just
double
enjoying life. Yeah, of course. With so many trade speculation pods coming up this offseason, and really until Paul George's final days in Boston. And no one's going to hit us with why are you guys talking about trading Paul George? And if they do, it's awesome because it means Paul George is having a uniquely special season in Boston. I think we've hit on all like the core arguments against the trade. Like there's some other ones on like the private equity stuff, but we sort of touched on that through talking about the press conferences. Are there any other like major talking points like against the trade, against Brad Stevens, against like people defecting from their Celtics fandom that you're seeing online, Jake?
I'm trying to think. So we've hit the market, we've hit the 35% of the cap, we hit the private equity. Again, I love that answer. Bill Chisolm saying, I'm going to prove it to you. We're going to spend when we can. Like we're going to, when we have the opportunity to. Again, another print the t-shirts. Like there was some bars in this press conference. I I covered on the previous pod, I think Brad has always kind of been intrigued by trading Jaylen Brown, and we think on the we might jump over to the Patreon, but I've got a bunch of Paul George stats versus Jaylen Brown stats that, again, the if healthy is doing a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to Paul George, but
Always.
we'll dive into it. But the shooting numbers are like a chasm between Paul George and Jaylen Brown. The turnover stuff, the passing, the decision making, the defense, all things that Paul George do better than Jaylen Brown.
And I think it's important to say that we're not saying that current Paul George is better than Jaylen Brown, but we might be saying that current Paul George, again, when healthy, might be more complementary to Jaylen Brown, and that might be one piece of the logic puzzle that we're trying to assemble right fucking in front of your faces about why this trade was made and why it's a digestible trade that you should all get your head around. Honestly, come on, guys,
get around it. Get around it. Like, have you seen these Hugo Gonzalez highlights?
Oh my God.
What are we talking about? We got Summer League starting on Friday. So
cannot wait.
The hype train is getting out of the tracks. And Paul George already doing good guy things, waving his trade kicker. Next thing you know, he's signing team-friendly deals. Hey man, go watch some 2023, 2024 Clippers highlights. Scorched sauce. We haven't converted him. Dumb trade in caps.
Yeah. Can't get them all, Jake. Can't get them all. But I don't know. I think just read stuff. Like, figure it out. It's obvious why they had to make this trade. Anyway, we are going to hop over to the Patreon. We're probably going to vent about the people who still aren't on board. We're also going to do some Paul George deep dives and go through for an old school Reddit recap, a harkening back to the
shit about you fuckers who aren't on the page, just so you know.
We meant to say that after we stopped going live, but yeah, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. This has been fun. Thank you so much for joining us. First of the Floor live show in Boston, early November is happening. Of course, we're at the mercy of the NBA schedule. Once that comes out, we'll have a date, we'll have a venue, we'll get tickets online. So make sure you subscribe, like, engage, so you don't miss those notices coming out, which is going to be very, very soon. We're heading over to the Patreon now. Jake Eisenberg, love your work, man. Until next time, go Celts.